Hey guys, Cameron with CP Reviews here, and I am reviewing the newest DC animated movie for you. This is the review of Superman Red Son. Don't at me, okay? Superman Red Son is directed by Sam Liu, and it stars Jason Isaacs as Superman, but it also stars Amy Atcher as Lois Lane Luthor and Diedrich Bader as Lex Luthor. This is a retelling of the classic Superman story. What if Superman did not land in Smallville, Kansas, but instead land in Mother Russia? And this is also a period piece of sorts because it does not take place in the current timeline, but it takes place throughout several decades. If my count was correct, 40 years of story about Superman and what happens with him in this different setting. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story, some things that I like, things that I didn't like, and my overall synopsis. So stick around. Before I get started, I want to thank you guys for clicking on this video. It means a whole lot to me that you want to know what I think about this movie. Do me a huge favor first though, there's a thumbs up button down there. If you would please click that, it raises the visibility on my channel. Also, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, or even comic book TV show reviews, or even comic book convention footage, click that subscribe button. Last but certainly not least, if you want to know as soon as anything gets published on this channel, click that notification bell. You'll know as soon as anything goes up. So Superman Red Son is a adaptation of the Mark Millar written Superman Red Son graphic novel that came out back in 2003. And this is pretty faithful to the story. There are maybe some slight tweaks, especially the ending, but it's pretty faithful. Superman grows up in Russia and becomes the face of Russia. Now, I'm not going to ruin the story for you if you're not familiar with it, but I will tell you there is a plethora of not just Superman characters, but also DC characters. So aside from Lois Lane and Perry White and Lex Luthor, you also have Wonder Woman and Batman and the Green Lantern Corps, and you have Bizarro, and you have Brainiac, and seeing them in a different version, it's quite interesting, even though it's not a different version from the book that it's from. Just seeing these different twists is really interesting, and one of them actually blew me away. It was actually one that I was not expecting. And as I said before, this is a period piece, so not only will you see classic DC characters in a different light, but you're also going to see people from history, like Joseph Stalin, and you're going to hear and see from Dwight Eisenhower. So it's kind of nice seeing these people from history portrayed in this over this 40-year span of the story. As far as characters go, Superman definitely is the sole focal point of the story, but there's also kind of like a Lex Luthor point to it, because in all of Superman mythology, it's been Superman versus Lex Luthor, and this story is no different. It's just because Superman is in Russia, it's not humanity versus this alien. It's this communism versus capitalism kind of deal. And there are some, tweaks to it. It's not just basic USSR Cold War stuff, but it's very interesting. And they get into some ethics of, Superman has always, cared for the lives of humans. He's the only world he's known is Earth. And even in this version, he cares about the lives of those around him. This is a little bit different though, because the way that he's portrayed in classic Superman mythology is quite different in this version. He still cares for human life, but there are some things that he does. There are some lengths that he goes to that you wouldn't see out of American Superman. Also, we got to talk about Lex Luthor here, because in this version, Lex isn't the bad guy. In classic DC lore, he really doesn't see himself as the bad guy either. He sees himself as the savior of humanity in a lot of classic stories. This one's no different, except because of the perspective, we kind of believe him. We kind of believe he is the savior of humanity, the savior of America. And I thought that was quite refreshing, that he's not, this bad guy. I mean, the last time that we've seen Lex Luthor literally was in the Harley Quinn TV show where he was like the ambassador of the Legion of Doom. It doesn't get much more bad guy than that. And then before then, it was in Crisis on Infinite Earths where John Cryer was like, I'm the bad. You might as well play a Billie Eilish song on top of it, how bad he wanted to be.
Duh.
The peripheral characters don't disappoint. Wonder Woman was as strong in this as I remember when I read the story before. I really enjoyed her characterization, especially in the third act. I loved that because she was not about any of that bull, and I really like that. There's also the Green Lantern Corps we don't see very much of, in the same way that we don't see very much of Batman. Before I get to Batman, I want to say that it was really nice seeing Phil LaMarr reprise that role of John Stewart in the Green Lantern Corps. And, I don't care if this is kind of sidetracked, but I love Phil's Green Lantern, and I was so glad to see it as brief as it was. But getting to Batman, if you remember a video I made maybe a month ago, I was like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Batman in this story. And they stick with the script, but there was something that they added that I just maybe didn't catch when I read it so many years ago. This Batman is, I will say this. I don't agree with this Batman, but I can't deny his effectiveness and I can't deny his resolve. And I don't want to spoil anything else about this Batman, but that's what I will say. As I said, there are also some other villains that are in this, like Brainiac and Bizarro. One of those stories is quite tragic, and the other story is quite typical. Just because Superman lands in a different country doesn't change some other aspects of the Superman mythology, if you catch my drift. There are some things that I didn't like about it. Me personally, I had a hard time with the accent at times. It just seemed so bland. And I'm not saying this was the case for the entire movie, but it just didn't strike me as Also, sometimes the delivery kind of left me wanting a bit more. And this doesn't happen throughout the entire movie, but there are times where there are two people conversing and there are pauses, but they're not pregnant pauses where the space in between the dialogue lends weight, but it just kind of seemed a little empty. Now, that could be just my interpretation. It could have been a lot more weight to it, and I just didn't feel it. But that was just, like I said, my take on it. You may feel differently about it. Another thing that I was like, I wish it was a little bit different. The climax, I kind of saw it coming, but then again, I did read the book. My issue with it, maybe it could have lasted a bit longer. It seemed a little rushed. And then, as I said before, there is a twist at the end of the book that they completely forego at the end of the movie. I wish they would have put that twist in there. It would have added a nice little cherry on top of this movie. But to kind of wrap things up in a bit, I enjoyed Superman Red Son. I wouldn't say that it was, it hit every expectation, but I would also say it's not disappointing at all. To give it a grade, I'd give it a 74, a solid C average movie. It's not bad. I think the direction from Sam Liu, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to make interesting characters, even if I find the main character slightly bland. But the animation looks great. This is based off of Bruce Timm's animation, so it has that classic nostalgic feel from the 1990s Batman and Superman animated cartoons, but it also flows pretty well. And then the acting, I'm not going to say is hit or miss because it's actually pretty good. The Russian accents every now and then, I'm not going to say it took me out. It was just hard for me to say Superman speaking in that Russian accent. There's also not a whole lot of hand-to-hand fights in it, but when there are, they are gorgeous. I will give it that. So if you're looking for a good time, a Superman movie that's not like every other Superman movie, give this one a try. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So that's my review of Superman Red Son. Tell me what you guys thought about it in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends, and as always, this is Cameron with C-Beam Reviews. We'll see you next time. You know, it would have been nice if they would have put like a Rocky IV reference in there, where it's like Superman comes up to Lex Luthor and he's like, "I must break you." That would have been pretty cool. I'd have liked that.